We have a very special caller right now. We got a lot of callers into the show, but perhaps none bigger than this one. It's our sports director, Bobby Ciafardini, calling in from the Indy 500. Bobby, how's it going? How is it over there?
Oh, it's fantastic, guys. It's so great to be with you on the show, joining you from the racing capital of the world.
I mean, it's a big annual event and really a lot of excitement for this one in particular because the biggest crowd in about 25 years is expected. And I'm curious as to what you feel the atmosphere is going to be like there and what it does for the racing events as a whole.
Well, Brian, I mean, this is the largest sports venue in the world in terms of actually even single-day sporting event in the world. So you're going to have probably 350,000 people here on Sunday for the race, the 107th running. And again, you know, in terms of just the sheer number of people and the actual size of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, it's truly remarkable. I mean, one of the things I was going to share with you guys on the show today, because I wasn't sure how many of our listeners were aware of just how big and massive IMS is. You could actually fit, we're talking about 8 major landmarks into IMS at the same time.
Wow.
You could fit Churchill Downs, Yankee Stadium, the Rose Bowl Stadium, Vatican City, the Taj Mahal, the White House, Liberty Island, and the Roman Coliseum into that structure at the same time and still have some spaces left for parking, Brian. So if that puts into perspective just how large the oval is, 2.5 miles, I mean, 200 laps, 500 miles, 33 drivers, and then you have the greatest spectacle in racing in terms of the fans partying and having a good time, and these cars going over 230 miles per hour. To me, there's nothing like it.
So, Bobby, it sounds like you're really excited over there. I was wondering, do you have any predictions for today's race?
So, in terms of predictions, Will, that's a great question. I mean, I think when you look at this series, you know, everybody does focus on the Indy 500 because it is their major event. It's like their Super Bowl. But the series itself is just outstanding. I mean, in terms of racing, it's a single-spec series, so all the cars are the same, and it really is about the driver. You know, and you look at the first 5 races of the season, there has been a different race winner every single race so far. So in terms of the field for the 500, I think it's totally wide open. I mean, you could really see, you know, any driver, I would say, you know, you have 33 drivers, but I think even anybody in that top 15 could really emerge. And it, you know, they've often said about IMS and this particular race, guys, that the Speedway picks the winner. And there's definitely been a lot of years that it hasn't been the pole sitter, you know, the guy that's basically there in the front row, that first driver. So it's hard to say. My pick, if I had to pick somebody, guys, I'm actually going to go real dark horse here. I'm going to take Santino Ferrucci.
Wow,
he's
picking the dark horse.
Yeah, I'm going dark horse. He's from Woodbury, Connecticut, so sort of a local guy for us. He's 4th, you know, in terms of qualifying, so he's up front. And he's just a guy. I got a chance to speak with him on Monday when I came in. He was at this event called the Burger Bash, and it's an event for cancer charity. And he's just this really fun-loving guy, always smiling, doesn't seem to be fazed by how big the event is. I mean, he would not be, you know, we'll say one of the top guys to choose, but I think he's someone I could see winning on Sunday.
Now, Bobby, is this your first time attending the Indy 500, or have you been to this event before?
No, I would say we're almost 10 years straight for me.
10 years straight,
wow.
wow.
Yeah, I missed the COVID year. My first Indy 500 was 2015, and I was there at the 500 in 2016, which was the 100th running. And I've definitely seen some incredible races. I mean, that event in 2016, Alexander Rossi won it as a rookie. And again, you know, guys, you have 21 drivers from 14 different countries. You've got 3 21-year-olds in the race, not much older than you guys. David Malukas, Stingray Robb, Christian Lundgaard. And then you got guys that are older than me in this race. This will be the final race for Tony Kanaan, who's 48 years old. He's one of the legends of the Indy 500. He's won this race before. So, I mean, you know, and then you've got the pole sitter, the Spaniard, Alex Palou, who just won the most recent race, the Grand Prix. I mean, I love this race. I think it ranks up there in terms of someone that's been a reporter for over 20 years and seen some of the greatest sporting events there is, whether it's the NBA Finals, the Super Bowl, the Stanley Cup or the World Series, this one ranks at the top for me. I think there's nothing like it. I can't wait to bring you guys out for your first Indy 500.
And Bobby, on the topic of attending the event in the past, do you have any favorite memories that stand out from attending the Indy 500, either by going to the event itself or by watching on television? Do you have any key memories from the Indy 500 through the years?
You know, that's a great question, too, Brian. For me, I would say it might actually be my earliest recollections as a child, watching it on television. I remember my mom being kind of curious why a kid from the Bronx would be interested in a race like this. But I remember listening to the great Paul Page, and we actually had him on one of my shows that I had done the last couple of years during the pandemic, and he was the voice of the Indy 500, and he used to do these great introductions on television with the Delta Force theme in the background. It became like a long-running tradition that they would do for the 500, and I just remember being mesmerized by the pageantry of the event. I mean, obviously Memorial Day weekend, and just the speed, the sheer speed of the cars. And that's how I got hooked as a kid. And then all the great legends, whether it was Mario Andretti or A.J. Foyt, and now to be able to be covering this race as a reporter and go in, year in and year out, and to see some of the newest legends. I got hooked as a kid, and I've been hooked as an adult ever since.
And Bobby, with the race tomorrow, I mean, it's a huge spectacle event with the 350,000 people expected in attendance. So do you feel, for the racers personally, is this going to have an impact on them? I mean, with the 350,000, it's a big crowd. So is this going to take any guys aback at all? Are these guys ready to equip this? I mean, what do you think it's like? Because a crowd this big it's not common, and it hasn't happened really in the last 25 years for the most part.
Well, to me, it's a deafening experience. I mean, it's intoxicating, but you got to think that it's sensory overload, not just for the fans, but also for the drivers, too. I mean, there's strategy, Brian, that goes into this. I know a lot of people that don't follow racing might not totally understand the strategy, but there's fuel strategies, there's things that come into play with the tires, and then even just the actual G-forces that are on the drivers themselves, and the fact that they could go through, issues with being even hydrated. I mean, it's a race that takes into play with everything from weather to actual strategies by the race teams, and just to think about 500 miles and 200 laps and the rigors of what that must be like to be going over 200 miles per hour for that amount of time. I mean, the festivities themselves, Brian, will start at 11 a.m., but the green flag will drop at 12:45, and we should have a winner sometime maybe around 4 o'clock. So they're driving for a few for a couple of hours. So when you put that into perspective, I mean, they are true athletes, even if they're not given the credit that they deserve.
And I got one more for you before we let you go. You compared this event to something like the Super Bowl, and we all know how big of an annual event the Indy 500 is and the spectacle around it. So in terms of major sporting events, Bobby, where does this rank for you against some of the other sports that you've had to cover or have watched as a fan?
Yeah, I mean, gents, I really have been blessed in my professional career, whether it's being part of watching the Yankees win the World Series and going to every game in 2009, or even to be at the Super Bowl when the Giants won. I grew up a Giants fan, so that was an unbelievable experience. But I really cannot put into words just how incredible it is to see and witness the Indy 500 live. To me, it is a bucket list item. I mean, I love the series itself, but I've never seen anything like the Indy 500. I just think it's something that stands above the rest, and I know that might be hard for people to comprehend if they've never seen it. If I had to give some sort of analogy, a good analogy maybe for fans of, we'll say, the four major sports here in North America, if you've never seen a hockey game, I feel like television doesn't do it justice, right? You go to a hockey game, an NHL game, how fast it is, how incredible it is. The Indy 500 is sort of the same way. You have to be there to experience it. And I think that whole idea of sensory overload, Brian, is exactly what it is. It's almost exhausting, even to have to get to the track with that number of people there. I've often been there when it's dark out in the morning because, the gates open really early. And a lot of times fans start to pile in there at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. I mean, how many sporting events would you have to get there that early for a race that's going to start in the afternoon?
Well, Bobby, thanks so much for coming on the show. It was great to talk to you, and please enjoy the race tomorrow and enjoy yourself.